are back on the inside of the house. This is the 2x4 wall with the half-inch drywall on the sides. This is the jamb set and the hollow core interior door. A lot of people use pre-hung doors, and so do I, but I'd rather hang them in place. When I do that, I have to keep the time up, and I have to use all the shortcuts I can. The first thing you need to do is measure the door, and this one is 30 inches. It's important to do that because a lot of them come downsized from the factory. Next is to cut the head, and I'll cut it 30 inches long, plus the depth of the two dados. Well, here's a handy way to make that measurement. Use your combination square as a depth gauge, and that's 3/8.
After the head is cut to length, just nail the sides together. 6 penny nails would be good enough. 3 on each side will hold it. While door hanging is usually a one-man job, when you work by yourself, you learn to do a lot of tricks and shortcuts. I'll just take a shim shingle and nail it on the surface of the wall here. When the door jamb goes in place, that'll be sure that it's flush with the surface of the wall. This way, I can concentrate on the bottom and the top will hold itself. This piece of wood is the spreader, and it holds the bottom of the jamb 30 inches apart, exactly the same as it is on the top. Put some shim shingles in there to snug it up. It doesn't have to be perfect right now, because it's going to have to be adjusted when you plumb the sides. Put the level across the top and make it just as level as you can get it. When I level this head, it raises the one end up. That makes a space on the floor. And since this is a finished floor, you want that to be flush. So you take a scriber and set it to this distance and transfer it to the other side. That needs to be cut off, so you need to take the jamb out and put it on the bench. So when you put it back in place, both sides will be down on the floor and the head will be level. Now I'll mark the center of the door. This is 15 inches because it's a 30-inch opening. And now to be sure I get the same thing on the spreader, I'll put the spreader in place and then mark it. Square that across. I'll use this for the plumb bob. I use a 4 penny finish nail just to the side of the mark. Then when the string goes on, it covers the center line of the mark. You want to be accurate, and that does it. Just wrap the string around itself and hold it in place. You need to shift this over until it comes right in. That looks good. Snug up the other side. Be sure and always check it to make sure it lines up with the drywall. And then nail it up. I use 2 8 penny finish nails at each shim location, and again set them about 1/16 of an inch deep. Use 5 sets of shingles on each side, 1 the top and bottom, 1 right in the middle, and then a set between those. Later on I'll come back and be sure there are shingles behind the hinges and also between the latch plate on the other side. The other side is bowed in. I'll hold a straight edge with my knee. That'll free both hands, and then I'll shim it and bring it right to line. Be sure to cut this off just below the surface so it'll be out of the way of the trim. If you can't cut it with a sharp utility knife, saw it off with a handsaw.
Well, that's how I go about setting an interior jamb. And I use a plumb bob because it's fast and accurate, but you could also use a straight edge like this one. This has parallel sides, And I have a little block, one on the top and one on the bottom. Just put this against the jamb side like that, and you can use any size level to check it with. When it's plumb, just flip it around. Use the straight edge for shimming. Now, since this is just one door, I'll work on the door next, but if I had a whole house full of doors, I'd do everything in sequence. Set every jamb and every door opening, come back and fit each door, come back again and hinge. Now I'll put the stops on, and I'll be ready to cut this door. I'll set my square to the thickness of the door, and this is 1 3/8. Then I'll scribe a line down the jamb. Now on the hinge side, I'll gain a 1/16. The top piece of the stop is a square cut, and it's just pressure fit. And this is the side piece, and this is a cope joint. I like cope joints better than miters because it makes a nice tight joint. And one way to be sure that it's tight, put a little wedge on the bottom. I'll just tack this up for now, and when the door is in place, I might have to adjust it. All right, that takes care of the jamb. Now I cut this for a 30-inch door. Cut the head 30 inches because it's a 30-inch door. And I've saved myself a lot of trouble by making the jamb side straight. This will be the hinge side, and I'll mark it so I won't lose it. And then I'll need to cut these margins for the nickel and dime, and I'll bevel it at the same time. But before I do that, I'll put my router template on here and route out for the hinges.